Good afternoon, interns.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Am I audible to everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So today we have a diversional speaker. Today we have a diversional speaker and a remarkable associate with us. He was extraordinary in his academics. He pursued his master's from England and is tremendous in NCT and criminal cases. I would like to take the honor to ask Dinesh sir to take over today's session on bail applications.
Thank you, Pritika. So wish you all a very happy Janmashtami. Hope you all are doing very good. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for choosing me to speak on this important topic. It is actually one of my favorite part of the criminal trial. And it is also an important, very important part of the criminal trial, which determines how the case goes forward. So basically today we are going to discuss about how you should prepare and argue for a bail application. So I'll start with the basics of what we are going to do. So basically, when it comes to bail, there are two kinds of offences, some like bailable or non-bailable. And it has been provided in the CRPC. If you would go through the first schedule, fifth column, the bailable and non-bailable offences are provided over there. And when it comes to offences other than IPC, then last part of the second part of the schedule 1 states that offences which are punishable with more than 3 years are non-bailable. Hope I am audible to everyone.
Yes, sir.
Should I go slow or is it fine?
Fine, sir.
Great. So basically, the important part of this, the part that deals with bailable offences is section 436 to 40. 436 starts with the basic what offences are bailable, like the in what offences when in what cases bail can be taken. So basically 436 deals with bailable offences, bail by in which bail can be granted by a judicial magistrate or police officer. Bailable and non-bailable, if we would differentiate between them, bailable offences are those in which bail is a right. Means any person accused of an offence which is bailable in nature, then that person would be granted bail as a matter of right. And in case of non-bailable offences, that is the discretion of the court, depending upon various factors that we're going to discuss later on. So basically, once a person is arrested, then the magistrate has to see that whether it is bailable offence or a non-bailable offence. If it is a bailable one, then even during the preliminary investigation, the IO can release that person or the judicial magistrate can release that person, and that is a matter of right, like I discussed earlier. If it is a non-bailable offence, then section 437, 439, they deal with non-bailable offences. Then 438 is one of the most important part, that is anticipatory bail. 437 is bail by magistrate, in which bail can be granted by magistrate. 438 is anticipatory bail, pre-arrest bail, and 439 is bail by Court of Session, High Court. That is after the arrest of the accused. So basically, if you are preparing for a bail application, and since bailable offences, you don't need to put too much effort into that because it is a matter of right, so bail would be granted to your client. If it is a non-bailable offences, if it is a non-bailable offence, then you have to make sure that you keep certain things in mind while preparing your case and also while arguing your case. First of all, if it is a non-bailable offense, it is important that if your client approaches you, before the action has been taken by the police, so you should advise him that if he has the option of 438 available, and if he has not been arrested, you can advise him to file a bail under section 438. That is an anticipatory bail. Anticipatory bail is basically the moment you realize that you might be arrested, an accused realizes that he might be arrested of an offense that is a non-bailable offense. He has the right to approach the court and file an application under 438 for anticipatory bail. Now, you must be thinking, how would a person know that he might be arrested, or if he's being held liable, he can be held liable for a bailable offense? For example, if you receive a phone call from the police station informing you that a certain offense, that there has been a complaint filed against the client. Like, for example, if a client receives a call that there has been from the police station that there has been a complaint filed against him under a section that is non-bailable, that is sufficient for him to file the application under 438. Or if a FIR is already registered, which states that FIR has been registered under these sections that are non-bailable in nature, then he has the option to file an application under 438 for anticipatory bail. Now, while preparing for anticipatory bail, you have to make sure that all the important facts that you discuss, all the important facts with your client with very clarity. You need to make sure that you make him comfortable so that he can explain you about all the facts, even if he has committed that act or not. If he has committed that act under any situation or circumstances. So you have to make sure that you make him comfortable so that he can disclose all the important facts to you. And according to that, you can prepare an application, keeping in consideration those facts. Anticipatory bail plays a very important role when it comes to criminal trial, because that decides whether your client will whether he'll be arrested or not. So court generally weighs the facts. There are a number of things that the court weighs while deciding the application to 438. They can be the nature of the offense, whether he's a habitual offender or any other similar cases are pending against him, whether there are chances that he might interfere with the investigation of the case, whether there are chances that he or she might abscond. So these are some of the factors that need to be considered by the court before deciding the application of 438. Then, when it comes to if a person has already been arrested and taken into custody, then the only option available is filing a regular bail. And regular bail can be filed under section 437 or 439. Then the similar facts will be taken into consideration while deciding that bail as well. That whether the person that has been taken into custody is required to be taken into custody, whether an investigation is pending, what is the stage of investigation, how much investigation has already been done, what is the nature of the offense, whether it is important to keep him behind the bars. So basically, the court has to weigh between his personal right, his fundamental right under Article 21 of the Indian Constitution, and the societal interests. So weighing both these factors, the court has to decide whether it is important for the betterment of the society to keep that person behind the bars so that a fair trial can be conducted, proper investigation can be conducted, or whether prima facie there is not a case strong enough to keep him behind the bars, and he can be released on bail considering the facts of the case. So these are some of the important factors that court takes into consideration while deciding the case. So you must be wondering that once you file the case, once you after the filing of the filing process, and you have attached all the relevant evidences. And
Excuse me, sir.
yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt, sir, but actually by mistake, you've been made the host. Please can you make the Legum host back so that we can admit students who are waiting to enter the meeting?
Just give me a second, I'll try it.
Thank you so much, sir. It has been done.
It has been done?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So after preparing the case file and knowing the actual facts of the case, you have to file, after filing of the case, once, let us begin with anticipatory bail, for example, that the moment you will file anticipatory bail, the court would issue notice, the IO would also appear, and the learned TP will also appear on behalf of the complainant. And generally, the IO would state that the person is absconding. So basically, the person, it is his right, if he has not been arrested, and even if he's absconding arrest, it is his right. That cannot be taken as a ground for his dismissal of his application, because if he is arrested, then prima facie the bail application will become infractious. So that cannot be considered as a ground. Secondly, you have to bring forward the facts, important facts, like if the moment you go to argue the case, what I generally do is, it depends on a person to person, their style of litigation and advocacy. So what I generally do is, instead of reading the FIR, the facts, because the judge has already gone through the FIR and the facts, and that would be like repeating the same thing again. And for example, if you've already watched a movie and you are made to sit that you are made to sit and watch that movie again, that you might lose the interest in that. So instead of doing that, what I generally do is that if I know that a certain fact, a certain evidence is important for my bail application, then instead of going to the briefing the court about the FIR and the facts, I would like to bring those facts into the consideration of the court first. Like the first few minutes of your arguments, 4 to 5 minutes, are very crucial. They are very important because that is the time when you can bring those facts into the consideration of the courts. That is what I believe. You need to bring those facts into the consideration of the court, that these are the facts, basis of these facts. This is the background of the story, that the FIR is saying that this person has committed this offense, but this is the background of the case, that the person was there or not there, or for example, any kind of evidence. So once you bring those things into the consideration of the court, now the court would see, would go through the FIR, keeping in consideration both the facts, the version of the FIR also, and the facts that you have stated. So the court would weigh the FIR according to that. While going through the FIR, it brings greater clarity to the facts of the case. So that is one of the most important thing according to me, that you should bring those facts in the beginning while you're arguing for that. Then you need to be very precise, like don't go around the facts and be vague with your arguments. You need to be very precise with your arguments. Don't waste the time of the court. What I would suggest, just be precise to the points that these are the things, that these are the basis of my bail application. These are the grounds that I'm coming to this court. Then after that, like after going through your part, then you should go to the FIR part. That see, on the basis of these facts, these are contradictory to the facts of the FIR. Then you can one by one go on and like disprove the facts of the contents of the FIR basis on the submissions that you made earlier. Later, see, while deciding the bail application, whether it is anticipatory or regular, especially when it is anticipatory, court has to consider certain very important facts, that whether the accused person is in such a position that he might interfere with the investigation of the case, whether that person has been held liable for that offense, like similar offenses earlier, and whether according to these facts, that according to the as per the submissions of both the sides, whether prima facie there is a case or not. Because the moment a bail application is decided, that is a very important, like if it is decided in the favor of the accused, then it is a very important and turning point of the case. That now the court is also of the opinion that though these accusations are made against the accused, but since on the basis of the version of the accused, he has been released on the bail, now the court weighs both the facts while proceeding with the case, because after investigation, trial takes a lot of time, filing of the charge sheet also takes a lot of time, and a person cannot be kept behind bars solely because that he has been held liable for, he has been accused of an offense that is non-bailable in nature. Because we all know that it is not necessary that all the accusations made are true. There are a lot of frivolous complaints and accusations made just to make cases seriously. Sections like charges of non-bailable that are non-bailable in nature that are added with that. So this is the basic concept that what you should do while preparing the bail applications. If you want, I can discuss the sections as well, but that is more like very theoretical, and you must have gone through that a number of times. But if you have any doubts about the sections, then please, you're most welcome to ask those questions. Should we move to the question answers or?
Sir,
Yes.
can you basically tell what the section 439 deals with? I'm not able to understand section 439.
439 basically is the power of the court, session court or the high court, to grant bail after the person has been arrested. So that is the basic crux of the 439. 438 deals with anticipatory bail, that is before a person has been arrested, and 439 deals with post arrests. We have a few examples of applications that I can share with you, that how a bail application looks like. So this is basically one of the bail applications filed by our team. So you have to basically state the index and all. You must have gone through that a number of times. After that, under which section it is filed, 438 anticipatory bail. Then you have to state all the facts. Hope my screen is visible to all.
Yes, sir. It is.
Yes, sir.
So you have to go through the facts. You have to, attach all the important evidences that are available with you, like all the annexures. Like these are the. This is the copy of the FIR that is attached. You might be having the copy of the FIR while filing anticipatory bail, or you might not be having. So you can even file it before the filing or before FIR has been registered. So these are the orders of the court. So basically, when it comes to arguing a bail application, having strong evidences with you is very important, so that the court is able to weigh both the sides of the case. This is the format is almost same for both the applications. Just have to change the basic facts and the nature of the application. So should we proceed to questions? If I'm if I've explained you well enough. I think your voice is not audible. Can you please be clear?
Sir, is it now audible?
No, you're not at all audible.
Sir,
Yes.
I want to ask, like, what are the factors that the judge kept in his mind while guaranteeing a bail?
Yes. While granting a bail, a judge has to see certain facts. First, whether prima facie a case is being made out against the accused. That, for example, a person has been held liable, is accused of murder. But if you have sufficient proof that at that time the person was out of country, you have the immigration stamps and the other evidences, tickets and all, everything, that he was not there. So prima facie, if that person was not there, you have held them liable for an offense. So that is one of the ground. Second ground would be whether similar cases are pending against him. Like, is he a habitual offender, or not even if similar cases are pending, in today's case, if he is held liable for murder, then earlier if cases are pending against him for grievous hurt or rioting, anything like that. So that would give court an idea that yes, this person is a notorious person, and bail should not be granted to that person, so that he cannot continue doing that same thing. Then, if, for example, nowadays court has to see what is the economic condition. Well, in case of economic offenses, for example, like Vijay Mallya, Nirav Modi, the court has to see if it is a matter of involving huge amount, and if a person is influential in nature and that he might abscond the country, then court has to see that there are chances that this person might abscond. So it is important. And eventually, if he absconds, then you very well know that it is very difficult to get them back to the country and try before the court. Then nature of the case is also important. That in case a person is held liable for hurt, though FIR is filed for grievous hurt, but prima facie it is hurt, or if the offense is not too serious in nature, or if a person is held liable if he's a co-accused, for example, like he was like FIR has been filed with the help of section 120B or section 34 of CRPC. That sorry, IPC, that he has been as he was assisting the accused, main accused, but he was not even present over there. Then also that is one of the grounds that he might be granted a bail. So these are basically the most important facts that to take into consideration. Anything else?
Okay, sir. Thank you. Yeah.
Will. Any other questions?
Sir,
Yes.
sir, up till when we can file successive bail applications?
Successive bail applications can be filed. There is no limit to filing successive bail applications. Generally, the court allows successive bail applications only when a new fact has been discovered. That, like for example, if it is anticipatory bail, then a new fact has been discovered and that was not in the knowledge of the accused at the time of filing the first bail application, then he can file a subsequent bail application, or he can file in anticipatory. Obviously, he'll go for appeal. But in regular bail, post-arrest bail, then successive bail applications can only be filed once new facts has been discovered by him, and he has to satisfy the court that these facts were not in my knowledge when the earlier bail application was filed.
Sir, I have heard that it can be filed until the charge sheet is filed.
Even if the charge sheet is filed, you can file a bail application. After charge sheet is filed, that depends when charge sheet has been filed. Like if the charge sheet has been filed before 60 days or 90 days,
Yes, sir.
then that defeats the his right to, like, after 60 days and 90 days he can be that grants him another ground for filing of like bail, that that is basically
So default
right
bail.
of the accused, default bail, right of the accused to file a bail application. So after charge sheet, if charge sheet has been filed before that period, so then also he can file a bail application.
Okay, sir. And sir, if we file a bail application and it has been rejected, so can we file the next bail application with some material facts which
Yes.
has been suppressed earlier?
Yes. If earlier bail application has been dismissed, then you can file a subsequent bail application. But like I said, while filing a subsequent bail application, you have to begin arguing that these are the facts that have come into my knowledge, which were not available at that time when the earlier bail application was filed. Then only court will entertain. Otherwise, if you start with the FIR and previous facts, and the court will say that you are just repeating the previous facts. So it is important that you bring those facts in knowledge of the court in the beginning.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
So,
Yes.
there's a question in the chat box. Can we approach the High Court under Section 482 instead of going for an anticipatory bail?
See, generally, application under 482 used to be filed in UP because UP anticipatory bail was not available in UP. So bail was filed if application under 482 were filed in UP. But generally, 482 High Court doesn't entertain 482 in bail anticipatory instead of anticipatory, since it is an inherent power. Court would practice that if there is no alternate remedy available with the accused. But he has the alternate remedy available. He can file anticipatory bail, he can file regular bail. So why would court entertain under 482? So the conclusion is application can be filed used to be filed under 422, but in the state of UP, Uttar Pradesh. But now, since anticipatory bail applications have been allowed in UP, so now it can be filed with the help of Section 438. Hope I'm clear with that.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions?
So there's one more question in the chat box. Is interim bail granted before hearing for grant of regular bail or after that?
Basically, interim bail is granted before the actual anticipatory bail application is decided. For example, you have filed an anticipatory bail and you satisfy the court that we are ready to join the investigation. And the court at that moment is not certain that whether anticipatory bail should be granted to that person is not. So the court is not sure about that. So generally what the court does is that court would issue a direction to the IU that, file a report on the facts of this case. And in the meantime, the court would grant interim protection till the next date, that person should not be arrested till the next date of hearing. And the court would also direct the accused to be present before the IU and cooperate with the investigation. So interim protection is granted like in the hearing of the anticipatory bail itself.
Huh?
Yes.
So to ask, like you have said that when anticipatory bail is rejected, the interim protection is being guaranteed. But sir, if the anticipatory bail is rejected, then police officer can arrest that person, no?
Yes.
So why interim protection is being provided?
Interim protection is basically provided so that the person can come before the IU, he can join the investigation, and the court can determine the actual facts of the case. The person is protected so that he can freely defend his case. Prima facie, we have to satisfy that the accusations are not correct. Then only court will grant interim protection. Like the court would consider the earlier facts that I discussed while granting interim protection as well.
The interim protection means the person will not be arrested.
Yes, the person will not be arrested till next date of the hearing.
And just like you have earlier talked about successive bail application means filing bail again and again.
Yes, generally what people do is like once a bail application is dismissed after a person has been arrested, a bail application, he filed a bail application, the application has been dismissed. So the same person again goes to the court and files a bail application instead of going in appeal, because once he goes into the appeal, then the lower court won't entertain that application. So just to if a new fact is discovered, if a new fact comes to his knowledge, so he would file a successive bail application, like bringing those facts, so that court can consider granting him bail instead of filing him.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Sir, I have one question.
Yes.
So, sir, you are saying that interim bail is at the discretion of the judge.
Yes, it is at the discretion of the judge. It is.
And yes, sir.
It is not. The court is not bound to grant interim protection.
Okay, sir.
So there's one more question in the chat box.
Yes.
That what is blanket order in anticipatory bail? Like accused can never be arrested?
Generally, like a court gives anticipatory bail that a person will not be arrested until the conclusion of the trial. So that is what is the meaning of blanket order. Like there have been, I would share the judgment with you, that there was a judgment in which the court stated, the High Court of UP, I guess, stated that blanket bail order should not be granted. But that was overruled by the other court, by the Supreme Court as well, that since a person has already been provided anticipatory bail, and it should extend till the conclusion of the trial. Though if a person has already been granted anticipatory bail, and if he commits any such act or he breaches the condition of the bail order, then a person can file an application for cancellation of his bail. So conclusion is that accused will not be arrested until conclusion of the trial. So that is a blanket bail order.
So there's one more question. What is the difference between cancellation of bail and rejection of bail?
Basically, rejection of bail is when a person has filed a bail application, and after the hearing of the bail application, court dismisses the bail application. So that is basically dismissal, or you can say rejection of the bail application. Cancellation of bail application is once he has been granted bail, the accused files an application for cancellation of bail, that this person is threatening me, or this person has committed, has breached the conditions of the order of bail. Then on the basis of that, his bail shall be cancelled. So that is cancellation of bail.
So there's one more question. Can a person apply for bail if the case of POSCO Act and extortion is applicable and he has not been taken into custody yet?
If can a person apply for bail if the case of POSCO Act and extortion is applicable? And he has basically, you mean to say that if an FIR has been registered under these Act, extortion is applicable. Extortion is similar, it is non-bailable offense. So he can file a bail application. So that is not a bar that he cannot file a bail application. Even in POXO, if it is a non-bailable offense, so that will be governed by these principles that he can file a bail application if a false or frivolous complaint has been filed against him. So the bail is basically a right of the accused. It is, you can say it is a, like, you know, right, we cannot say it is a right, but bail is basically to balance, to create a balance between the societal interest and the individual interest of this person. So for example, if a person has been falsely implicated under POXO, he has sufficient evidence to prove that prima facie there is no case made against me. So he can file an application under anticipatory bail before he has been arrested, or for a regular bail after he has been arrested. So there is no bar as per my knowledge.
So there's one more question. Can a under trial prisoner get bail? And if yes, for how much period?
Can an under trial prisoner get bail? That is basically if it is an under trial prisoner and if he's behind bars. So basically he would go to the court under section 439, he will file a regular bail, or he would file bail under section 437. So he can file a bail. That is, there is no bar to that. And the period of there is no certain period that he shall be granted bail only for this period. So generally bail is granted unless and until, like, you know, the bail order continues unless and until he breaches the conditions. So I think there's a question from Laksh that whether all the economic offense are bailable or not. See, for that, I would again say that if you go to the last part of Schedule 1, like if you go to the CRPC and if you see the schedule, then there is, like, you know, in the fifth column, then there has been provided whether it is bailable or non-bailable. But after it finishes, after section 511, in that, if you would see at the bottom, there it has been mentioned that what if it is any, like if an offense is punishable under any other law, then in that scenario, you have to see if he has been accused of an offense that is punishable with more than 3 years, then that will be non-bailable. If it is less than 3 years, then that will be bailable. Any other questions or any other thing that you would like to ask regarding preparation of the bail application or how you should argue it?
Do you have any doubts in terms?
I want to ask, can court reject the bail in bailable offense also in some situation?
Yes, in certain situation, the court can reject if he is not ready to furnish a bail bond, or if court is of the opinion that bail should not be granted to him.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Sir, what is the time limit of the anticipatory bail order?
There is no time limit. Now it is clear that there is no time limit. Once anticipatory bail has been allowed, then that goes on till the end of the trial, unless and until it has been cancelled by the court.
So, sir, we can imply that all anticipatory orders are blanket orders.
Yes, blanket orders, correct.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome. So some of the, I guess Anmol has asked a question that, do we have to cite judgments in our bail application? See, while presenting your case, if you have judgment of a similar case that was of a similar nature, facts were similar, then you can use those facts and the opinion of the court in that case in your case as well. Yes, you can use those judgments in your bail application.
Can you share some of the drafts of the bail applications some students have asked in the chat box?
Yes, I would share it with you. 1 second.
Interns, we'll share the draft with you in the WhatsApp group.
Actually, we have to, because it's a voluminous record. So I would advise that if you can share it with the interns in the group.
Yes, so we'll share the same.
This is the basic format. You have to state the name of the case, the name of the parties. This is basically an affidavit. So this is how it looks like. And you have to mention about the FIR number. The index is like this. Then after this format, you have to state your facts, and like if you're relying on a certain annexure, then you have to, on a certain evidence, then you have to like add it and add an annexure with that. You have to add that in evidence as well. So this is the basic format. That will be shared with you. Any other queries, or should we wind up?
Interns, if there are any further doubts, you can mail them on the same email ID, and we'll wind up today's session.
I think there are a few other questions. Let me assume a few messages. Haven't got the some drafts has already been shared. I think we've gone through all the questions. So should we wind up the meeting?
Thank you so much, Dinesh sir, for today's session. Thank you, interns. And you'll be shared the video of the same session, and we'll intimate you about the next virtual internship session on WhatsApp groups. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Thank you, sir.